Hey, it's Jessica DaMassa with WTF Health. I'm here right now with Eugene Borukhovich. He's the global head of digital health for G4A for Bayer. Eugene, good to have you with us as always. How are you?
Excellent. Feeling the vibe.
Feeling the vibe. Okay, so I wanted to ask you, this year, it seems like this past year has just been really huge as far as digital health has gone. We saw a lot of things change. It's almost like a lot of the little startup companies where it was once like, oh, there's an app for that. Those have gone away. Things have consolidated. We've seen digital therapeutics really start to make its own kind of name for itself, that moniker. FDA is stepping in, doing some approvals on this stuff. There's all of these things happening. What are you seeing from your vantage point at Bayer?
So you pretty much summarized it all. No,
yeah, right?
But
I'm a font of knowledge.
So it's weird to say last year because but 2018 was honestly an unbelievable year for G4A. We had about 1,800 applications coming in through all of our programs. And interestingly enough, exactly what you just said, right? So a lot of digital therapeutics. Now, the interesting part about a lot of the patient-physician communication companies are now starting to try to classify themselves as digital therapeutics.
Which is really?
Which is interesting. So this is why I love about the Digital Therapeutics Alliance and trying to set some level of standards around evidence-based and behavior modifications. We're starting to see a lot of the neurotech, electroceuticals, things that are impacting your brain, also kind of calling themselves digital therapeutics, which is probably a little bit closer to it. So I think, to me, the digital therapeutics is the shining light in the convoluted, complex mess of digital health as a buzzword.
I was going to ask you, for you, break this down for me. So it's is digital therapeutics going to be what becomes, I guess, the category of these types of solutions that are clinically validated, and then the rest of it, all the apps and whatever, the Fitbit, everything else that kind of does stuff, is that just going to still remain digital health? How do you see this shaking out?
I'll be frank with you. I think in the next couple of years, the digital health will just, as a term, will disappear.
Really?
I think there's been a lot of confusion around connected health, e-health, digital health,
health.
And ultimately, what we say with my team, it's about health in a digital world today.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, to your point, digital therapeutics, we just had Stefan Ulrich join as the CEO of our pharma division. And I love what he's saying, right? He's saying drug plus, but maybe it's plus drug, or maybe it's just plus, right? So I think, as an industry, there's some of the earlier players like DaMassa and Volantis and many others that paved the way, right? And it's amazing what they've done in the course of the last 5 to 8 years. And actually think about that, right?
Right.
5 to 8 years, right? Omada, I think, been around 8-9 years. So it does take time because it's still evidence-based, right? And then one last thing I'll say about the whole digital health, I think, what I've also been saying, all the EMR, EHR, health IT, it's all been kind of bundled into the digital health term. And I actually think there's still the interoperability.
Yeah.
That's your health IT,
thing.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You got on the front end side, direct understanding the patient, the consumers, commercializing digital health in a way of form digital therapeutics. So let's call it drug plus or plus drug, right? In this case. And then there's honestly almost in between.
Right.
And then one last thing on that, we're still going to continue kind of hacking our bodies, and I don't mean literally, but biology or biotech and digitech in the next 3 to 5 years, we're not going to see the difference.
Really?
And that's my personal opinion that all of that comes together. And yes, there's going to be always small molecules, but also large molecules, also software-only therapies, right? So it's happening, and to me, 19 is actually one of the key pivotal years for this industry.
I think so too. Well, we're going to see, right? And I think, everybody's talking about, obviously from last year, JP Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway, Amazon, Apple really stepping it up and actually seeing some clinical validation of their EMR products, things like that, new things launched with the watch. We're seeing others who are these consumer tech companies step into the space. When it comes to digital anything, therapeutics or health or whatever you want to call it, do we even in healthcare stand a chance against these tech companies, or are we just going to be obliterated the second that Apple puts something out there on that app store?
So I actually don't think we'll be obliterated. Obliterated. And that was a little bit of my comment.
You can't even say it. You're like, I can't even deal with this. I can't even say it.
That was a little bit of my comment without knowing the next question around biotech and digitech coming together. And today, I think there's, to a certain extent, there's this cockiness in the in our healthcare industry saying, well, we got the clinical knowledge and the tech guys don't really understand clinical knowledge. But I would argue that a lot of the tech companies have cash, right? and
buy
ultimately
yourself some
and
clinical
and
knowledge.
bring in the right people to drive a lot of this. And I actually do think, back to this, it is an ecosystem, partnerships, and we've been seeing over a number of last years, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things like Sanofi and Google Undo,
Right.
and many others. I personally think, and my personal opinion on a lot of this is, these multi-hundred million press releases are great to a certain extent.
Yes.
But what happened to the startup style mentality, right? Just
Yeah.
because it's a combination of two big giants,
Doesn't mean.
do you need to do 500 million, or do you give some traction, milestone, keep moving to prove it, just like a startup would?
Wait, are you saying the ever famous Eugene Borukhovich line? Let's just get some shit done. Is that what you're trying to say?
That is exactly. Let's just get shit done. Let's prove the point and either kill it or move forward, right?
All right, so speaking of killing it or moving forward, I understand that G4A has had some changes this year with the way that you guys are organizing yourself and kind of like inviting the startups into the organization, working with them. So, I mean, this is cool, and I want to ask you about this because I think like oftentimes in innovation, we forget to talk about how freaking hard innovation is, particularly in a gigantic company like Bayer. So talk to me about what you've learned about like your innovation process, the way you guys were engaging with startups, and then how it's changed as a result.
Yeah. So do we have like 2 hours or 3
Okay.
or a few more?
Summarize.
Yeah, summarize. I guess, one thing is I did not lose my hair in the last 2.5 years.
Thank God for
Also
that.
before. It is absolutely challenging. And one of the key things, it is about the team, right? And actually some of the, a lot of the corporates are kind of saying, well, when are you going to stabilize the team? When are you going to kind of, never, right? The world is changing. And, one of the things, I mean, last year, 2018, we had a number of these programs like Dealmaker, Accelerator. We had a bunch of country programs, Generator with our consumer business. So just like we're changing and pivoting that, which I'll save that for later, also the team, right?
Yeah.
And it's not, there's a lot of new people joined, a lot of people left, and we're also making very quick decisions. It's not about that these people are bad, good, or different. It's about the right place, the right time, and moving things much quicker in a non-conventional way, let's put it that way. So to answer your question directly on the challenges, I think, I get a lot of pitches from other different accelerators, this and that, can we help you scout, find other startups, etc. Not my issue.
No.
Like we
throwing themselves at us.
Yeah, and the whole team is pretty well connected. We got, to me, the biggest challenge is actually landing these inside the organization.
Right.
And part of that is I'm a big believer in still small team, even in large organizations, to take something by the cojones, right? And get shit done and move it forward, and push the envelope on the bureaucracy and the process, etc. That's what my team is good at.
That is one of the hardest things to do. So it's phenomenal that you think that.
It is. And just to kind of compare, for example, some of the numbers, and we also realized focus is key, right?
Yeah.
So to give you an example, last year, meaning 17, so yeah, 17,
So, yeah.
For our commercial program, we did about 40 letters of, we picked 40 companies.
Okay.
We did about 12 letters of intent.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I don't know the latest number, but it's a fraction of those that went into a commercial contract, right?
Okay.
In 18, we decided to focus more and say less challenges, less companies selected. So we selected only 12, not 40.
Okay.
But because we focused, we did 9 letters of intent this year.
Nice.
In 18.
Right.
And actually, at least half of them are now converting already. So this is, just 2 or 3 months later into contractual agreements, right?
Oh my God, no, that's a great.
So I think focus is key, because also in large organizations, transformation equals time. And I think the realization of, while transformation equals time, we don't have time. As back to this earlier conversation around whether it's tech giants or FMCGs or other companies, it is a race to the speed of the organization, how quickly we learn and how quickly we make the decisions. Bottom line, that's it.
No, I mean, and it sounds like, I love what they asked you, like, when are you going to stabilize the team? It almost sounds like this is to your benefit, that the team remains a little bit unstable and feels like they, have got to kind of fight internally for what they're going for and really push. And then also like this race against the clock. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, not to, probably it's not no surprise there's going to be a bunch of changes at Bayer coming up, right? And I think, the interesting part to me is, as I talk to my team, that level of change, we've been going through it as a team, right? And in this constant, I don't want to call it survival mode, but to a certain extent it is, right? Constantly changing, constantly pivoting, constantly moving. And so for us, it's like, okay, changes, great. Fantastic, let's do it.
You set a constraints to operate and improve yourselves, right? Yep. So what's on tap for this year ahead? I mean, what are you guys looking at doing?
So continuous changes.
Yes, of course. What are you continuing to change?
One thing we, as the whole G4A grew organically, right? And we expanded from the early stage startup programs to commercial programs. The team here, which is G4A Ventures, we got our venture board approval in November to move into incubation with one concept with our consumer business that hopefully I'll be able to talk about in next time we speak.
Let's hope so.
But we also had this generator program with our consumer business. The reality that what we noticed is startups in the world doesn't care that Bayer is set up. We have a pharma and consumer, right? If we talk about nutrition is for wellness, but it also could be for oncology patients, right? And so while the details, we'll announce them shortly, we're changing the way the world can interact with us. Instead of multiple programs, one way in. We're actually in the next quarter, we're working with both of our divisions to come up with concrete challenges. We as a team will insert some bolder ones in there, right? Because we got to keep pushing the envelope. And then with our divisions, we're going to select probably between, let's call it 15 to 30. We'll need to define what that number is, companies, and kind of de-risk some of these relationships and understand who the people are more, right? Really engage. And then what we're going to do is we're going to basically look and say, are you in the growth track with us, or are you in advanced track? Are you going to go advance further, quicker into commercial structure? Or we're going to help you more in kind of the accelerator mode, right? So, and by the way, now I can explain what G4A means. You either grow or you advance with us, right?
Oh my God, did you just do that?
First,
Holy cow.
Yes.
You just did that.
Yes.
No more grants for apps.
No more grants for apps. So it'll take us some time to feed it out, but now we can explain. And that came up organically, by the way. We didn't plan for it. So.
Okay, I'm not surprised. Like you say that like I would have been shocked. Like, no, that's like a happy, lucky coincidence for you. Well, that's so exciting. I mean, it's not often that I think we get somebody to be so candid about how, number one, difficult innovation is, especially in a big healthcare company. And then number two, it's like when something is not working, like you looked at your program, you're like, this is not working. Like even right down to the name, like this is just not us anymore. So let's change it. And I love that. Yep. Fearless. All right. What do you think? Last question for you. I want you to pick your brain. I want your prediction. So, I mean, it sounds like you're really hot on these, like the electro-neuro kind of stuff. Is there any other area that you think is really hot coming up this year?
Yeah, honestly, we're going to focus, as I mentioned earlier. And I think this is the year for the pharmaceutical industry to really not just talk about plus drug, right, or drug plus, but really do it and get shit done. So this is where I think we're going to focus on. And with our consumer business around some of the nutritional components, hopefully we'll get to scale some of that. So the team is not large. Focus is key. That's where we're going to be. All
right. Awesome. We'll see what happens. Yep. Thanks so much, Eugene. Always a pleasure to pick your brain about this stuff. Thank you for your insight. I'm Jessica DaMassa with WTF Health. Thanks for joining us.